up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello and welcome. In today's video, we are going to be doing an eyeshadow palette ranking. I've got 22 palettes in front of me that I have thoroughly tested. I've created multiple different looks, I've used every shade at least once, and I'm ready to give you my final thoughts. But if you're new here and this is the first time you're watching one of my palette ranking videos, I like to do things a little differently. So if a brand releases more than one palette at a time as a collection, I like to rank it as a collection, and from there I do a ranking within a ranking. If that's not making sense, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about in just a minute. But before we jump into the ranking, I do want to preface this by saying that this video is just for fun. If your favorite is not my favorite, that's okay. This is a judgment-free zone, and this all comes down to my personal preference. It comes down to what I look for as far as color story goes, formula goes, and how I like to do my makeup. But I will have all of these palettes listed and linked down below in the description box if they're available to do so, as well as what I am wearing on my face. So per usual, if you're ever curious about anything I use in any of my videos here on my channel, always check the description box. I squeeze as much information as I possibly can into that tiny little space. But let's go ahead and dive into this ranking. Alright, so kicking things off at number 19 from Moonslice Beauty, we had the New Moon palette. This one came in my September Ice Cream Beauty box, and the color story in here is beautiful. I have used this brand before. I have another palette that they had in the Ice Cream Beauty box. I love that one. I think it's beautiful. I think the quality is beautiful, but for some reason, this one just didn't quite do it for me. I had a little bit of a hard time building up and blending out the deeper shades in this palette. I got a lot of patchiness, and it just took a lot of elbow grease to get me there. The lighter shades performed beautifully. The shimmers in here are really pretty, but for some reason the quality just isn't as good as what I experienced before from the brand. So for that reason and that reason only, this one's going to come in at number 19. At number 18, we have the Enchanted Autumn palette. This one comes to us from Fantasy Cosmetica in collaboration with Makeup Just for Fun, and I was so excited about this palette. This is the first time that they've collabed with anybody. The packaging is absolutely beautiful. I love the theming of this one, but the color story just falls a little flat for me. It's very mid-tone to deep. I like the shade selection in here, but I wish we had a little bit more variety when it comes to the mattes as far as going really light goes. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a very fair gal, and I have a hard time getting that lightness that I want, blending these shades out and making them not so harsh. It's not anything to do with the quality of the palette. The quality is 100% there. It's just gonna work better for like medium to deep skin tones. So if you're like me and you've got really fair skin tones, this is going to be more of a companion palette as far as the mattes go. But my other issue with this palette, I say issue, it's not really an issue because there's not anything wrong with them. It comes down to personal preference. Fantasy Cosmetica is known for having really reflective, beautiful, shimmery, shifty, multi-chrome, duochrome shades in their palettes, and we only have one shade in here that's like really reflective on the lid, and the rest of these are just really pretty metallic shades. So for me, that was a little bit disappointing. I do understand that when somebody collaborates with a brand to make a palette, it's supposed to be a reflection of both the creator and the brand, but for me personally, I see more of the creator in this palette than I do the brand. I wish we had gotten, like I said, a little bit more depth with the mattes in here, and I wish we had gotten a little bit more variety as far as the shimmers in here go. So quality wise, there's nothing wrong with this palette at all. It performs beautifully. It's just not perfect for me. Coming in at number 17, we have the Urban Decay Moondust palettes. So we have this little quad over here, which is going to be all Moondust shades, and this one is exclusive to the Sephora website. And then we have the Star palette over here that's exclusive to Ulta, and this one's actually going to give you 3 mattes and 3 Moondust shades in here. I think both of these are so cute, a really good release from the brand, a fun little limited edition holiday palette that you can get or you can gift to somebody else. And personally, I really enjoy the Moondust formula from Urban Decay. They're just so sparkly and twinkly, very smooth on the lid. They don't emphasize texture. They work beautifully as a highlighter, an inner corner, or if you just want to add like a little twinkle of a topper over an eyeshadow. Now personally, I like the Star palette more, and the reason being is that you do get the 3 mattes in here. So for me, it's going to give me like a one and done cohesive look out of this palette. Great for travel, great for every day if you just want a simple no-brainer look. My only issue with this palette is the 3 mattes in here are very light. So if you've got like a medium medium to deep skin tone, these may not work out for you the way that you have in mind. So something to kind of keep in the back of your mind, whether you're getting this for yourself or if you're gifting it to somebody else. But the matte formula is really nice in here. So if these matte shades would work for you, I personally like this palette. But the quad is cute as well. I like that you just get 4 moon dust shadows in here. Say you don't want any mattes, you don't need any more mattes, you just want to add a little twinkle to your collection. This one is really good. Another thing to keep in mind in case you're eyeing both of them, you are going to get color overlap with these. So these 2 shades up here at the top, which are called Space Cowboy Rides Again and A-List Energy, are in both of the palettes. So that's kind of my ranking within a ranking, which is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Overall, I think these are really cute. I think they're a fun addition. I'm happy to have them, and I think they're good little companion palettes. Coming in at number 16 is going to be the Happy Halloween palette from Sugardrizzle. Now this one was very limited edition. In fact, I'm not sure if it's still available. If it is, I will have it linked down below, but this is so cute. I love the cover art, and I love that the color story matches the cover art. This is a 9 pan palette, and you do have 1 matte shade down here, and this is a black. It's a very pigmented black, but it's also very easy to blend out and manipulate on the lid. I don't get any patching, skipping, or fallout. It's a really good matte black shade. But everything else in here is going to be like a shifty, sparkly shade. It is very purple heavy. You do have this really pretty sort of orange multi-chrome right here and this tie-dye up here that comes off more of like an icy silvery purple shade. I think this is a really good color selection. The quality in here is fantastic. In fact, the quality in the rest of these palettes moving forward is really, really good. I don't have any issues with any of them. It really just comes down to color story preference and how I like to do my makeup. But the reason I'm putting this one where I'm putting it is because this is more of a companion palette for me. I do love an all shimmer palette, but they always fall a little bit lower on these rankings because I like to mix and match them with other things. And when I do these rankings, I'm looking at the palette as a whole on its own. And for me, I just can't get one cohesive look with this palette. It's just not going to happen. I've done it, but I'm not a big fan of all shimmer looks. They kind of accentuate the texture on my lids, and they just I don't find them to be very flattering is what it comes down to. Not that these shimmers accentuate texture, but when you start putting them in the crease and all of that, to me, they're just not very flattering. But this is a really cute companion palette. It's the good Sugardrizzle formula, and I really do love this one. At number 15, we have another one from Sugardrizzle. This is the Monster Party palette, and look at how cute this packaging is with the little monsters on there having their party. I love this little guy over here with his ice cream and this one with his hot dogs. I think it's so incredibly adorable. But the color story in here, I really like this one. We do have a 1-to-1 ratio as far as mattes and shimmers go. The matte formula from Sugardrizzle is so good. I really do love it. They're very easy to blend and apply on the lid, but my issue with this one is I don't have enough depth in this palette. I wish we had a little bit more variety with the matte shades in here. The shimmers are beautiful. I do really enjoy those. We do have this one deep green shade over here, but everything else is very mid-tone. We don't have anything to give a lot of variety. So when you start getting into these, they kind of blend and look the same on the lid. So if we had had maybe this one be a little bit deeper, maybe this one a little bit lighter, it would have given that little extra bit of variety that I look for in a palette. But this one is actually a really good combination with this one over here. If you play with these together, you can get a lot of depth and some really cute color stories. Number 14 is going to the 2 palettes from the Glamlight Coca-Cola collection. These are so incredibly cute. I love the packaging, the theming, the color story, the formula. In fact, the entire collection as a whole was really, really good. But these palettes are so good. This is the good formula that I know and love from Glamlight. The mattes in here are pigmented, they're user-friendly, they blend out really easily. I don't get patching, skipping, fallout, creasing, anything like that. And the shimmers in these are really good as well. We don't have multi-chromes, duochromes, or holochromes in here, but we do have very reflective shimmer shades, and they're beautiful on the lid. They don't emphasize texture. I don't get any creasing or anything like that. But as far as which palette's my favorite, that's a really hard one because gut instinct is the cherry palette. I love the color story in here. It's purple, it's berry, you've got depth, you've got beautiful shimmers in here, cool tones, warm tones. I really do enjoy it. but I like the depth that comes in the original Taste palette. I do like the fact that we have these two more neutral shades in here. You can get a little bit more variety. This red is so good. It's a true red. It doesn't come off pink. And this black over here does have some red sparkles in it, but it's not one of those that I get patching or a lot of fallout with, and it blends out really nicely. I'm not the biggest fan of like this gunmetal gray shimmer shade over here. It's a little dark for my taste. But overall, this is a beautiful palette as well. But I guess when it comes down to, if I really had to choose one, this would probably be my favorite based off of my personal preferences. But I would say go with whichever one kind of tickles your fancy. At number 13, we have the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 6, the Freedom Palette. This is so incredibly beautiful. It's pretty much an all shimmer palette. You do have some more mattes down here, but they're more of like a creamy matte formula. But let me just say, the shimmers in here are incredibly beautiful. I love the variety in here. It's very much so like a rainbow palette, but again, it's pretty much an all shimmer palette. And for me, this is more of a companion palette. I will say I have been reaching into this palette a lot since I got it, but I do want to point out one thing. While this palette is meant to be like a travel friendly, you can pop it out, put the little lid on it, I would not suggest traveling with this palette. I barely knocked this one time on my desk, and this shade and this shade right here completely shattered. I had to repress them in. This one's got a little mixture of other shades in it. That's why my palette looks like a total mess, is because I had to clean everything up. I lost a lot of colors. In fact, I almost thought it was a complete goner. I almost started crying because of how much this palette was. So while I love the concept of this, and I think it's an incredible and very innovative packaging, I would not suggest traveling this one. I had planned on traveling with this one to Disney when we go in December, but this one's going to stay home. But back to the formula, I think the formula is incredible. These are very reflective, very shifty, very smooth on the lid. They don't emphasize texture. I don't get any patching. I don't get any fallout. I don't get any creasing. They wear all day, and I have very oily eyelids. I do really, really love this palette, and for me personally, I think it's 100% worth the price point. If you look at the price of like a multi-chrome or duochrome on its own, those can be up to $25 a piece. And when you break down the cost of this palette, it actually comes out to a really good price point. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I did the math a long time ago and I was like, oh, that's a really good deal. I'll pop it up on the bottom of the screen what it averages out to each shade in this palette. But very beautiful, really love it. It's just a very fragile palette. At number 12, we have the Unity palette from Adept Cosmetics. Now, this is the sister palette to the Flying Fiddles palette, which came out at the beginning of this year. So we had that same kind of packaging on here, but this one has more of the purple lace with the black roses. And that one was like black and silver because it's more of a neutral leaning palette. But the color story in here I think is absolutely beautiful. It is a shimmer heavy palette. You do only have the 5 mattes down here, and then you've got 10 shimmers up here. We do have one, I believe it's a multi-chrome, it could be a duochrome, but the rest of them are just really reflective shimmers. So it kind of keeps the price point down a little bit, which I personally like. I've said it before, I don't always need a multi-chrome or duochrome to make a beautiful look. But if you're going into this palette thinking that you're going to get a lot of those shades for a really good price point, you're not going to. So it's something I wanted to point out. Now, I think the color selection is beautiful. I do love this multi-chrome right here. I love this purple up here. And these 2 shades over here I think are absolutely beautiful as well. I like the selection of the matte shades in here as well. We've got a lot of lightness, we've got some depth in here, but the reason I'm putting this one where it is because Adept does not have my favorite matte formula. This is the good matte formula from Adept, but even being that formula, it's just not a favorite of mine. So usually when I reach into Adept palettes, it's more so for their shimmers than it is for their mattes. This one I will reach into and use the mattes with it, but it's just not the first palette that pops into my head when I want to reach for anything. And the palettes ahead of this one, I just like the quality and the formula that much more. Alright, so these next 2 palettes were really hard to kind of decide which one I wanted where, because I do really love both of them, but they're kind of landing where they're landing because this is just kind of what I'm gravitating towards at the moment and the mood that I'm in. So coming in at number 11 is going to be the Shall We Makeup Somber Garden palette. This one was in collaboration with Freya 86, and this is so beautiful. This is a gorgeous cool tone color story. These are the cool tones that I gravitate towards. We don't have any grays in here, which makes makes me super happy. I love the seafoam green over here mixed with this army green. It's a beautiful combination. The matte formula in here is incredible. I really love the Shell-We matte formula. It is more buildable as far as pigmentation goes, and you don't get any fallout, which I have found to be a rarity in the C Beauty world. Normally they are very pigmented mattes, very crumbly, you get lots of fallout, lots of kick up in the pan, and I don't experience that with this formula. The shimmers in here are absolutely gorgeous as well. This multi-chrome right here, holy smokes, does it have the most incredible shifts. It's got like this green to yellow to gold to like orange, purple, red flip to it, like a little bit of everything. It's incredible on the lid, very reflective, very smooth. In fact, all of them are very smooth. I don't get any creasing, any fallout. They don't emphasize texture, anything like that. I do really enjoy this palette. The only nitpicky thing I have to say about it, which has nothing to do with the formula at all, I'm not a fan of the smaller pan size from Shell-We. I was trying to like it. It saves you about $15, $20 whenever you get the smaller one compared to the bigger one. I just found I don't personally think it's worth it. While I can get my finger and my brush in there, I just have a harder time, and for me, it's just not worth it. So I don't think I'll be buying the mini palettes moving forward. So that has nothing to do with it, nothing to do with the palette as a whole. It's just a little thing I kind of wanted to point out. But beautiful palette. I do really enjoy it. But once again, I like the ones ahead of it just a little bit more. At number 10, we have the Wolfa palette from Shell-We. Now this is the palette that I love more than I thought I was going to, and the reason being is it's a 5-pan palette, but it only has 2 matte shades in it. But let me just say, the 2 matte shades that they chose, absolute perfect choices. This one in the crease, outer corner, and then one of these on the lid. There's actually a lot of variety when it comes to this palette, surprisingly. This shade over here is incredibly beautiful. I think I like this one more than the one in the Somber Garden palette because it's just so reflective. It almost has like this water look to it on the lid, and these two are beautiful as well. I have loved every single look that I've created with this palette, which at this point I think is 3 looks that I did, and I want to create more. I want to mix more, I want to do more, I want to bring in more. I really enjoy this palette. Like I said, this was one that I didn't think I was going to love as much as I did. I bought it because I thought it would be just a really pretty, easy, neutral look, and personally I like the packaging. I know that's not a reason to buy something, but what can I say? I can be easily influenced by just the packaging of something. Alright, so we are down to the top 9 palettes, and let me just say that this was a really hard decision. I sat with this for the longest time. I've rearranged this about 1,000 times because it all comes down to mood and what I want to reach for, and the quality in all of these palettes is really good. I can't find anything wrong with any of them, so I just kind of had to lay them out and be like, okay, do I like this one more than this one, or do I like this one more than this one? And like I said, I rearranged them a million times. So these could 100% change at any moment. These could all be number 1. These could all be number 9. It just kind of is what it is at this moment. So let's jump into this. Coming in at number 9 today is going to be the Nomad Cosmetics Fuji 5 Lakes palette. This packaging is the most beautiful packaging I have in my collection. I love this oil painting cover art on here. The attention to detail with this one, every time I look at it, I'm just enthralled by the packaging. I can't get over it. But the color story in here is absolutely beautiful. I love the blues with the yellows, these reds over here. But this color story is just one that I'm not reaching for right now. Like, I will 100% reach for this, like more towards like December, January, when it gets a little cooler outside. I don't always let the seasons dictate how I do my makeup, but there's certain color stories that I gravitate towards during certain times of year, and this one just isn't the one that I'm going for yet. This is a beautiful matte formula in here. This is the good matte formula that Nomad has been giving us as of late, and the shimmers in here are so incredibly beautiful. This one up here is like the most beautiful iridescent white with like just a little hint of a blue to it. It almost looks like freshly fallen snow, at least what I think in my mind. I'm in Houston, Texas. We don't get snow a lot. When we do, it doesn't hang around long, but I just really love the color selection in here, and I love the mixture of cool tones and warm tones in this one. Coming in at number 8 is the Butterfly Shadow and Backlight palette. This is from a brand called Anthemy, and they are a C Beauty brand, and they're actually a new C Beauty brand. This was their first palette that they did. They actually just came out with 4 more recently. I did pick up 3 of those. That video will be coming very soon. I know I've had them for a little while, but I promise it's coming. But this one is so beautiful. It is a little on the pricey side, but for me personally, I find it to be worth it. The matte formula in here is so incredibly good. These are very pigmented, and as far as brands from C Beauty that I have tried, I get minimal fallout with this one. Like I said, I've come to learn that you're going to get fallout with C Beauty brands. It's inevitable. It is what it is, but it does fluff away and clean up pretty easily, if I'm being honest. Now, the reason that I'm putting this one where I'm putting it, because I want to put it higher, but this black-based multi-chrome right here creases on me after about 8 or 9 hours. For a lot of people, I know that's not a big deal. That is 8 or 9 hours wear that you're going to get. But for me, I'm someone who typically has my makeup on for about 12, 13 hours. So it doesn't last as long as I want it to. So if I'm going to wear this palette, I generally wear it on a day that I don't have a whole lot to do. It's going to be a shorter day. I don't need my makeup to last like throughout the whole day. But other than that, this is absolutely beautiful. This shade right here is incredible as well. I really like the variety in here. I like the depth in here. This is such a good formula, and I'm really enjoying this brand. Number 7 is going to the Gourmande Girls Calavera palette. This is such a beautiful color story. Yes, it's a little rainbow-esque, but we have a little bit more like neon going on in here than a true rainbow. I love the matte formula in here. I didn't have any issues as far as pigmentation, blending them out, building them up, patching, skipping, fallout, nothing like that. Actually, I take that back. I got a little bit of fallout with this black shade down here, but it's a black. I typically do a black, so it fluffed away. It didn't make a huge mess, but I really enjoy the variety as far as the depth goes in this palette. My only little nitpicky thing, and that's why I'm putting it where I'm putting it, is I wish we had more variety as far as the shimmers go in here. I love a matte heavy palette, but I do like something that has a little bit more shimmers than this one does, because this is such a huge palette. With that being said though, this shade down here is like the most versatile shade in this palette. You can pair this with anything else in here and it's going to transform your look completely. I really do love the color story in here. I love the meaning behind this palette. I love the theming. This is a really good one, but again, the palette's ahead of it. I'm reaching for a little bit more in this moment. Number 6 is going to the Unearthly Cosmetics Gargoyle palette. This was one of their Halloween releases. It's one of their bigger palettes, and this color story in here is gorgeous. Again, it's a cool tone color story. For the most part, it's the colors that I gravitate towards. We do have this gray over here, which I'm not a big fan of, although I am coming around to grays as of late. But again, it's just a color story I'm not really gravitating towards as much. I do think it's beautiful. I really like the looks that I create with this one. It's just not my perfect color story. As much as I think cool tones look good on me and I'm coming around to them, I just don't gravitate towards them nearly as much as I want to. But the formula in here is impeccable. It's the good Unearthly formula that we know and love. The shimmers in here are beautiful. I love the variety. We've got darkness, we've got lightness. This shade up here is so incredibly beautiful. I love this one over here. And this one, oh my gosh, look at the sparkle, look at the shift. I don't even know if you can see that on camera. Probably not. It's probably not picking it up. But this is a beautiful palette. If this is your color story, this is your jam, I 100% recommend it. Number 5 is going to another C Beauty palette. This is the Weird Nightmare palette from the brand Dramo. This is the only one that I have tried from the brand, and I love the color story in here. This is like a grungy rainbow. You've got pastels, you've got grunge, you've got warmth, you've got coolness. These 3 shimmer shades in here are beautiful, and they pair beautifully with anything in this palette. I have really enjoyed every single look that I've created with this. I've wanted to dig into it a lot. In fact, I've actually dug into this one a few times, like when I'm doing my makeup on my own, and I just want to pull in a pastel in my inner corner, or this shade right here. This one looks like a fire on the lid. It is so incredibly beautiful. I've really been impressed with this formula. This one, a lot like the Shelby formula, is a little bit more on the buildable side, and I also don't find that you get nearly as much fallout with this one as well. But I think the color story in here is really, really unique, especially to my collection, which is why I'm putting it where I am and why I'm gravitating towards it as much as I am. This is a really good year-round palette. You can get beautiful fall looks, spring looks, winter looks, everything. I've really been enjoying this one, and I really need to try more from the brand. At number 4, we had the Nomad Cosmetics Chicago Speakeasy palette. I fell in love with this one almost immediately. I love the color story in here. The warm tone browns mixed with the cool tone purples and these lime greens in the middle, absolute perfection. It's everything that I personally want in a color story. If you've been here, you've watched my videos, you've seen my looks, you know that I love a lime green, neon yellow, chartreuse, whatever it is in that inner corner, especially paired with purples. And I think they did a beautiful job curating this palette. It goes from very light to very dark. We've got a good variety of mattes in here, and this center row right here is all multi-chromes. I will say though that this shade right here doesn't seem to have nearly as strong of a flip as everything else is. It's still beautiful on the lid. I don't get creasing. I don't get any kind of emphasis of texture or anything like that. I just wanted to point that out to you, but this shade right here that I can't remember how to pronounce it, I've looked it up several times at this point and I forgot, has the most beautiful flip to it, and it is insanely beautiful on the lid. I've really enjoyed the looks that I've created with this one, and I think this is my new favorite one from the brand. I recently did a ranking of all of my Nomad palettes, and New Zealand Stargazing was my number 1, but I think this one actually surpasses it because I just love it that much. Everything from the packaging, the theming, the color story, the formula, all of it across the board, impeccable. My number 3 spot is going to the Undergrowth palette from Cosmic Beauty. This was another one that I didn't think I was going to love as much as I did because based off of the pictures, I thought it was a very monochromatic green palette. I do really love a green eyeshadow, but I don't love it enough that I typically reach into a monochromatic green palette. But I love the addition of the browns, the yellows, this orange over here. Oh my god, this chartreuse shade is absolutely stunning. Of course, Cosmic Beauty has one of my favorite formulas. It is so incredibly, the mattes are pigmented, very easy to blend out, no patching, skipping, fallout. Their shimmers are always incredibly beautiful and shifty and insane and sparkly and all the pretty words, and their price point is really good as well. But like I said, I didn't think that I was going to love this palette as much as I do, but this one is like a grungy dream. It's perfect for fall, winter, spring, year round really. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I just really love this one. This one might be a new favorite from the brand as well. All right, so we're down to our top 2, and I actually just rearranged these because quick last minute decision, I decided I like this order better. So coming in at number 2, we have the 2 new palettes from Cryptine Cosmetics. So we have the Atlantis palette and the Violet Crazy palette. This is a newer C Beauty brand. They did launch at the beginning of this year with their Burnt Forest palette. That one is incredible. I fell in love with the formula, the shimmers, everything immediately, and these are no exception to that. This is an impeccable formula. The mattes are very pigmented. You do get some fallout, but it's not nearly as much as I've found from some other C Beauty brands such as Narimi and Cheer Up, but the formula in here is incredible. And the shimmers are what do it for me. They are so reflective and shifty and just beautiful on the lid. They are insanely smooth. They don't emphasize texture. I don't get any creasing or anything like that, and I have really enjoyed these 2 palettes. But my favorite out of the 2, which I'm sure you already know, is going to be the Violet Crazy palette. Look at that, absolutely gorgeous. I love that they give us some neutrals in their palettes to kind of ground your looks, give you a little bit more variety, but we've got a lot of different shades in here. We've got warmth, we've got coolness, we've got depth, we've got absolutely beautiful shimmer shades. This one right here is so insanely beautiful, but I love this color story, but I'm also a purple lover, so I'm a little biased when it comes to this one, but I do have to say, the Atlantis palette is almost tied with that one because it is that beautiful as well. It is blue, yes, but when you look at it realistically, it's only this little quad right here that is super blue. You do have like this black and gray right here. You have a really pretty lavender shade that pairs beautifully with this palette. In fact, these 2 palettes in general pair beautifully together. Again, you've got your neutrals over here. I love this shade right here. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And this one down here, stunning formula. Highly recommend it, especially if you want to start digging into C Beauty and you're not sure where to begin and you want something that's going to be user friendly but still have that punch to it. I highly recommend Cryptine. I think they have a fantastic quality. They've got a really good brand, and their shipping is fairly quick as well. It does come from overseas if you live in the United States, so you do have to take that into consideration, that sometimes the shipping is going to be a little higher and things like that, but she does have discount codes and you can get a deal if you purchase on launch and things like that. But I absolutely love these palettes. And my number one palette for this ranking is going to the Bella Beauty Bar Poison Garden palette. This one is so incredibly beautiful. It's like the perfect mix of everything. You've got cool tones, you've got warm tones, you've got grunginess in here. These blues right here are so vibrant. They're almost like an electric blue. I love the pops of purples up here. This little quad I think is one of my favorites. I absolutely love the look that I get with it. You've got some neutrals in here. It goes from really light to really dark, and of course the shimmers in here are beautiful. But Bella Beauty Bar has what I think has become my absolute favorite matte formula across the board. It is so user-friendly. It's pigmented, but it's not overly pigmented. They're still very user-friendly, very easy to buff out, blend. I don't get patching, skipping, fallout, creasing, anything like that. The shades last on my lid all day. I never get any fading, and the shimmers are beautiful. They do sometimes give us some more like chunky textured shimmers, not anything like a pressed glitter or anything that's like unflattering on the lid. I just personally prefer a more smooth shimmer, but for the most part these in here are so incredibly smooth and beautiful. I love and adore this palette. Even with it being as dark as it is, I can get the lightness that I want out of it. I can 100% bring in something else to give me a little bit more lightness, but like this shade up here and this one down here, they buff out beautifully and give me the perfect transition shade. I love and adore this palette, and this may be another new favorite from the brand. I don't know what it is with all these brands bringing me new favorite palettes, but this one is definitely up there. Alright y'all, so that is going to complete this palette ranking. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. Do you have any of these palettes or any of them on your wish list? How would you have ranked them differently? I want to know it all. Let's have that conversation. Light up that comment section, and as usual, I want to thank you all so much for watching my video and spending your time with me. It truly does mean so much to me. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up before you leave. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on that notification bell so that you can be notified of all my future posts here on my channel. I do post quite a few videos every single week, and I wouldn't want you to miss one. But until my next video, have a good one. Bye.